Hello and good evening. It's now 19:05 in London. I'm Luke Addison.
And I'm Nikki Scott.
Thank you so much for joining us again for our 5th episode of Together Talks Series 4. Tonight, we are delighted to introduce Professor Erinma Bell, MBE. Erinma is a mother of 8, a community leader, educator, and peace activist, recognized for her work tackling gun crime in Moss Side and Longside, Manchester.
Erinma and her husband Raymond witnessed a close friend being gunned down in front of them. Shocked by what they saw, they set up CARISMA, a charity to give young people positive alternatives to street and gun crime. So tonight, Erinma will be joining us to talk on the topic of peace building. Just do it. And you'll see when you see Erinma's energy, why she picked that topic. So without further ado, let's learn a little more about Erinma through her introductory video.
What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah. I'm Erinma. I run my own charity, which is known as CARISMA.
Hello. Yeah, I'm all right. You're not in school. You're lucky you have 6 weeks.
What we do best is provide positive alternatives for our young people, other than the gun and gang crime. My name is Dr. Erinma Bell. I describe myself as a community peace activist. I'm actually a Rotary Peace Fellow and an honorary Rotary member to the Manchester Breakfast Club. I went along to a Rotary breakfast meeting, and that's when I was asked, would I like to go on a bit of training to do with peace and conflict resolution? I thought, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. They said, oh, it's in Bangkok. I went to the program leader and I said, oh, I don't think I should be here. And she said, why? I said, well, everybody else is dealing with proper conflicts, you know. And she said, well, where you come from? I said, well, I'm from England, Moss Side. And that's when she said, I'm sure you wrote that you have young people running around with guns. That's a conflict. Going on that 3-month course really helped, and when I came back I was determined I'm going to put these to use, and I thank Rotary for that. But one of the things we do is we go into schools a lot. We talk to children as young as 6 and 7 years old, because we feel the earlier you talk to them, the earlier you can plant that seed of positivity in them. I think Rotary is very important in building peace around the world because they are global. And I think giving individuals, like myself, that opportunity to go to another country to learn what other people have done in order to bring about peace, I think it's valuable and at no cost to the individual as well. Rotary has a sparkle, and when it touches you, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't know I can go ahead and do that. Oh, I'll go and do that, or I'll go and get involved in that, or we'll go and do this. To me, that's the magic of Rotary. It's got these tentacles that actually spread and go everywhere. Everybody that is touched by Rotary, their lives are changed somewhat, and it's always for the better. It's like with myself, I wouldn't have gone to Thailand if not for Rotary. That's how it's changed my life. So I know that I can now do anything.
So let's zoom Erinma in from Manchester. Come on down, Erinma. It's lovely to see you.
Hello, Erinma.
Hello, everybody.
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, actually. I'm doing fine in our beautiful... Actually, we've got the sun out today, so I shouldn't complain. We've got the sun, so it's good. We've had a lot of liquid sunshine, but otherwise we've got real sunshine today.
Super. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to meet you and to welcome you to Together Talks. If we can move things along and offer you our Together Talks soapbox, please.
Right, for me to talk... Oh, gosh, you'll have to tell me when to get off this soapbox because I can talk forever. Anyway, I consider myself a community activist. Never used to at first because I used to think, oh no, those people just make a lot of trouble. But I've realized that basically that is what I do. I do make trouble, but it's necessary trouble. One of the things we've done very well is act as an organization, which is known as CARISMA, act as an organization that is a pressure group on local and central government, really to get things changed. We're coming from a neighborhood which about 15, 20 years ago was quite well known for the gun and gang crime that was quite prevalent in our neighborhoods with our young people, and adults as well getting caught up in gun crime. But we decided that, we wanted to change our neighborhood. It's where we're born, it's where we're brought up. And we decided, enough is enough. So it was about galvanizing people together, getting local people to own the issue, own the problem. It was about advocating to our young people in schools, primary schools, high schools, colleges, universities, advocating to young people that, you know, you're supposed to live beyond the age of 18. You're supposed to live beyond the age of 21. You know, you have a whole life ahead of you, you know, and also it was about advocating to them, but actually giving them practical models that they could use to be able to keep themselves safe out on the streets. It was about saying to adults, and especially to local and central government, that, you know, gun crime was not about black on black crime. The colour of the hand that pulled the trigger was not always black, which is what we were being told, that it was black on black crime. We were told it was a crime that just pertained to Moss Side, you know, which is a predominantly black area. It was not a black crime. It was, you know, UK had an issue with guns. We were told, no, Moss Side had an issue. And it wasn't just Moss Side, it was the whole of the UK. Even if it was just Moss Side, the UK would still have had an issue with guns. Why? Because in the UK, guns are illegal. You cannot just go into a shop and just purchase one. These weapons were being smuggled into the country, and that was not being done by 14-year-olds. And that was the thing that we had to highlight to government. And it took us 6 years to bring gun crime to the top of the government's agenda before they decided to do anything about it. We managed to influence laws around guns and carrying guns. We managed to influence training with our local police, Greater Manchester Police. We influenced training around stop and search and the way that was carried out. We did lots of training with young people and with police officers, you know, in order to bridge that relationship that they had. It was about trying our best to bring about peace in all facets of life, because peace actually means different things to different people. In the school, for primary school, because some people might think, why did you go into primary schools? But in primary school, peace could be that nobody's going to play with me in the playground. You know, in high school, it could be something different. In your neighborhood, it could be that your neighbors, you don't get on with your neighbors, or that somebody has actually been shot and killed in the street where you live. So what are you going to do about it? You know, instead of us all just complaining about it, what we tried to do, what we did do by actually hosting Peace Week, for 10 years, we hosted a week of peace where we basically challenged people to come out and do something different, work with people that are completely different from you, work with people that you've never worked with before. And even if you have, work with them in a completely different way. That's what Peace Week was about. And it was about the young people being able to showcase to adults, this is what we're about, this is what we can do. And then for adults to actually have faith in our young people. That's what it was, you know, for peace, for us, that's what Peace Week was all about. Bringing people together, bridging people together, bonding, linking. It's all about peace, because we're all about bringing about peace, our organization. We have so many different acronyms for peace as well, which we even challenged others to bring up ideas of acronyms. And one of them that we always use, that comes to the forefront of my mind, is positive energy always creates elevation. And then there's people ending all conflict everywhere. And then when we worked with a lot of faith groups, they came up with prayer enhances active community engagement. You know, so just to show you that peace means different things to different people, but there's always something that you can do, you know. And we used to say to people, we had a lot of people that would support our work. And then we found out for a while that, yes, they're very good at saying to us, well done, well done. Oh, yes, go out and do that again. And we said, well, actually, we want you to come out with us. We want you to march the streets with us. We want you to get involved. Some people ask, well, what can I do apart from just walking? So we managed to get funding so that community groups or community areas, they actually made peace lanterns. And we would walk with peace lanterns. One year we even let off those, you know, the Chinese lanterns with the lights in, so that people could still physically show and agree their agreement in wanting peace on their streets and in their neighborhood. You know, there's so much that people can do. We've also, what we've done very well as well is create social capital within our local community groups. That creating of social capital to bring about peace and conflict resolution, whether if it's bonding social capital, where people basically bond together, gravitate towards each other because they look the same, they sound the same, they wear the same clothes, or they speak the same language, eat the same foods. That is a natural thing that we do. If I walk into a room, which many a time I have, and it's like got 40 middle-class white men in there, but there's one woman, I'm going to gravitate towards the woman naturally because I'm a woman. She's like me. We've got the bridging social capital, and that's where people dare to step outside of their comfort zones within their communities. They dare to go and find out what another community is about. They'll be the peacemakers that say, well, I'll go to the other side. I'll walk with the flag, or I'll go with the peace stuff, to find out what they're about and bring that information back. And let's see how we can all get on. That's bridging. You have the linking, which is just one more. You have the linking social capital, where you work with people in a hierarchical situation or a hierarchical organization, basically for their resources. And then finally, you've got identity. And identity is another social capital that is so important to people. But so many a time, we don't realize when we're stripping people of their true identity. And that is important to individuals.
Erinma, you said, you might go on the soapbox, but there's no way I was going to interrupt you, because to see your passion oozing out and how much this means to you and to the people that you work with. I mean, you've achieved so much as a community peace activist, and you mentioned very clearly how it means different things to so many different people. Mm-hmm. Let's rewind a little and talk about how this became so meaningful to you. I'm not sure that one point in your life you knew this would be the path you would take, right? Or the path it would take you on, life would take you on. So let's go back to that moment of what kicked this all off. What got this all started for you?
Okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, I didn't set out in life saying, oh, I'm going to be the next Emmeline Pankhurst, or, I'm going to be the next peace activist, or Mother Teresa. No, not at all. What happened was, one unfortunate night, me and my husband and a couple of friends, we were going out for a Christmas do, actually. It was around Christmas time, I remember. And just a very long story cut short, we were approaching a house, we were going to a house party, when you go to your blues, house parties, and heard the music, thought, oh yeah, that one sounds good. Approaching the house, and unfortunately, somebody tapped one. There was 3 people stood at the doorway, and one of them tapped our friend on the shoulder, and it was raining that night, so he had to take down his hood to see who had tapped him. And I know this happened because I was right behind him. And as he took his hood down and turned to the right to see who had tapped his right shoulder, these 3 guys just all brought out weapons and just started shooting him. And, he fell to the ground, everybody ran, we all ran off, and my husband, picked me up and we all ran. And then I ran back because I said to my husband, they're shooting our friend, they're shooting Charlie. And he said, no, they can't be. And I'm like, I'm sure it was. I said, it's Charlie. And when we went back, unfortunately, it was our friend that had been shot. And they shot him 11 times. He did survive. Again, even though everything happened very fast, it happened very long, but he did survive. We had to administer first aid. One of the other shocking things that really spurred us into action was, 1, the fact that he got shot. 2, the people that shot him, they didn't run off, they walked. They just walked away. Walked away because 3, it took, even though I'm the one that made the 999 call, even while they were still shooting, I made the call, it still took 45 minutes for emergency services to arrive, stating that, they had to do a risk assessment before they come into the area. There's just so much. And I think all that kind of spurred us into action. And for us, that's when that term enough is enough actually became real. But we were then decided we're going to put that term into action. Enough really was enough. We couldn't go through another night like that. We didn't want to. And there were many other people that were suffering like that, but too afraid to talk, too afraid to do anything. Or maybe it's just, they just didn't know what to do, because it was a case of, at first, you just don't know what to do.
I have one more follow-up and then I'll hand to you, Luke. But Erinma, how do you recover from the shock of an incident like that? It's not like you went to peace building school. So how did you know what to do first? You mentioned 6 years to get it into the spotlight, but how did you know how to get started?
That's a very good question, because we didn't. We didn't know how to get started. Like I said, we were not activists. We didn't sit down and say, right, we're going to set up this organization called CARISMA, and it's going to have all these aims and objectives, and they're going to have these outcomes. It wasn't that. We just got into action. We just did what we thought was best. And we just went with our mind and our heart, and we just did what we had to do. We said what we had to say. So, you know, like if somebody's interviewing you, say, and they're saying things like, so what have you got to say about the black on black crime? You'd actually say, you know what, this is not just about black people. White people get shot as well. Why are you saying it's just about black people? You know, so it was about, and I think there was a lot of anger, and maybe it's that anger and confusion that actually spurred us into action, you know, to actually want to do something with that energy, because you can have all that energy built up and do nothing with it, and it just makes you depressed and fed up, or you just shut the door on it. Or you can choose to do something with that energy. And I think that's what we did. When I look back, I see that we decided to do something with that whole ball of energy that we had inside of us. We decided to do something positive with it, and that we're going to get answers. We're going to speak up, because it was an area where we lived. We were born and brought up there. So, you know, if somebody's saying, oh, everybody in that area, they're all gangsters, it's like, hello, no, they're not. Because I live there, you know, I'm not that. My husband's not that. Our children are not that. Oh, they don't care about their children, what their children do on the street. Excuse me, yes, we do. You know, so because there was a lot of, I would say, when I say home truths that we know were true, and mistruths being put out there by the media. Because there was a lot of mistruths being put out by the media, and a lot of mistruths being put out by the government. And we just had to challenge that head on. And the thing is, you can challenge so-called authority head on when you know you've got the truth. If you've got the truth and you can back your truth up with facts, which is what we could do, then, you know, that's enough to challenge anybody.
Brilliant. Super. So Erinma, with this energy and with this passion to get something going, that was obviously where you started your charity, CARISMA. So tell us a little bit about how that works, what you do in the charity, and a little bit about the future.
Okay, it's really funny even how we started the charities. We started doing, like I said, we started doing peace gatherings and peace talks and going into schools, but we weren't being paid. We were doing everything as volunteers. Mm-hmm. And it was one year when somebody offered us some funding for to put on our Peace Week. And that's when we said, okay, yes, we'll have the funding. But we didn't know how funding works. We didn't know, you know, you had to have a company bank account and company name, and so that's how the CARISMA was born. We sat down and we brainstormed that. But what we were doing is we decided to even more so go into schools, lead school assemblies, and actually talk to young people. And we used to say to the schools, look, we don't want much time, just give us 10-15 minutes in your school assembly. Because for us, we knew that if you go to a school assembly, you talk to young people, you're talking to about maybe minimum 500 young people, maximum, if it's a large school, you're talking to almost 2,000 children in 15 minutes. And yes, not all of them's going to get the message, but a lot of them will get the message. And for us, it was about planting that seed of peacemaking, peace building, peacekeeping. It was about planting that seed of peacemaking within our young people, that they too can do it. It was also about the organization. We worked with adults, with parents, you know, carers, responsible adults, you know, to get them to understand that it's their responsibility, you know, to know what their young people are doing out on the streets, know where your young people are, know who their friends are. So there's lots of different project work, you know, we did at different levels as well.
Sure. And when you're talking about getting these young people as volunteers, how were you able to get the young people that you needed, such as those who were maybe involved in the gun crime or underprivileged, to volunteer? Because when you're getting young people to volunteer, so often it's the case that those with a lot of time or privilege or funding behind their backs can volunteer, but those that have to work lots of jobs and don't have free time often can't get involved in volunteering activities. So how did you allow for those who are kind of less privileged to be at the forefront of this volunteering?
Okay, one of the things we did was every Peace Week, we had a staged event. It would open with a staged event, and it was for young people to come and basically, we used to say to them when we go into the schools, that's when we used to promote the Peace Week, it's for you to come and strut your stuff. But we're going to need help. You know, we need help with the organizing, who's coming on stage next, who's going to organize the equipment, who's going to sit at the door and maybe take tickets off people, who's going to do this, that, and the other. And that's how we'd get some people to, young people to volunteer. The other thing we would do is, you can probably see it behind me. Which way should I go? The OSVAs. The Outstanding Social Behaviour Awards. What we used to do was, we still have this, it's an awards ceremony that actually awards young people for bringing about peace in their school community. And there's 6 different categories. But what we used to say to schools and colleges is, we're not looking for the goody two-shoes children, you know, because they get the certificates, the stars, the awards all the time. We said, we're looking for those young people who probably struggle with behavior issues, but they do try hard. Well, because they've already got that label of being, you know, badly behaved, it's actually adults that stick that label back on their forehead every time they try to do something good. So we said, those are the ones we're looking for. Because if you reward a young person who's, you know, who struggles with their behavioral issues, who struggles, but you award them for being good, or for once stopping a fight, you know, or for assisting a younger person, a younger pupil, what that does is, one, it gives them a self of pride. It gives them a self of, you know, their self-esteem boosts that, wow, I can do something. People do believe in me. Well, also what it does is, those others that follow that person as their leader, it makes them want to get an award. It makes them want to do something. It makes them want to get involved. So there's quite a few young people that we've mentored over the years. And then what they've done is, it's cascaded down. They're the ones that are now mentoring younger people, or they'll be the ones that will say, no, this is a good group. We need to get involved here. Let's do this. Let's do that. And yes, you know, to get them involved as well, you know, we did give them little tokens of, you know, I don't know, I'm going a while back now. I remember when we gave out a lot of HMV vouchers, and we know HMV doesn't exist anymore. But, you know, giving them vouchers, giving them things, you know, as a thank you, to show them that you appreciate them, you appreciate their time, and also, you know, you appreciate the knowledge that they're passing on to you. Because remember, we're no longer 14 and 15 and 16 years old. We once were, but society has changed. Their society that they live in now, societal things, community things, is different from when we grew up. So we need to be able to talk to them, listen to them, and get them involved in what we want. And we have another good term, a saying that we have: give them what they want, so that they learn to want what you've got to give. Because as an adult, we've got a lot of wisdom and life experiences to pass on to our young people. But we have to learn how to give that to our young people. And it's not about just telling them and plonking it on them. It's about negotiating with them, working with them, understanding what do they want, what do they need, and try to provide that for them. And sometimes it could be they just want a safe space to hang out. Some of them, they do want money. Some of them, it might even be a meal. They don't get an evening meal, but, you know, they don't want to go around saying, oh, I don't get an evening meal. So it might be that, you know, maybe in the youth setting, we provide an evening meal for them. It might be when I talked about the vouchers, because there were some that didn't get pocket money. They don't have that. So we give them the vouchers that they can go out, you know, and buy something. And, we, you know, with honest money, they don't have to go and steal. So it's about learning what they, you know, giving them what they want, or what they think they want, and so that they can learn to want what you have to give.
Yeah, that's a great question, Luke. And Erinma, I really love the way you've already highlighted in such a short time already about the risk of judgment, how much judgment goes on in the world, judgment, whether it's race or class or age or even just, you know, people underprivileged. And it just, people rise to expectations, I think. So it's so wrong, the adult role of judgment. And then we have a long way as a human race to go on that. But let me move you to the other end of the spectrum of people of privilege. Let's fast forward. We've got so much content to cover here. You talked about 6 years. It took 6 years to get the voice and to get on the agenda of those people with influence and power.
Yeah.
And I understand you've got an interesting story about how you finally got the attention of Tony Blair, even if you didn't believe you had.
Yes, there is an interesting story there. I remember our offices used to be in an old pub. It used to be a pub. It was called the Salt Shaker. Well, actually, it was known as the Pepper Hill Pub, and it was owned by a church. They bought the building, and then they called it the Salt Shaker. So, you know, from pepper to salt, from something really hot and spicy to something a bit more mild. But one day, anyway, these guys come into the office, and they're all dressed in black, you know, just like the film, and with the thing in the ear. And at the time, we had an administrator, a young man. And I remember he called me because I wasn't in the office that day, and he phoned me and he said, "Oh, Erinma, there's two guys here. You know, they look like from the Men in Black." I said, "Well, what do they want?" He said, "Well, you know, they're asking for who's in charge." He said, "But I didn't know what to say because, you know, it looks like, you know," he thought, "Are we in trouble?" What? Because again, our administrator, he knew I was very outspoken. I would say what I want, when I want, to who I want. And so he was thinking, oh my God, what has she said now to who? Have they come to arrest her? But they've sent the big boys. So I said to him, well, ask them what they want. And he said, I have. And they're just not saying. They said, you know, they want to see you. So I thought, oh, okay. So cut long story short, I went down to the office, sat down with them, and they said, oh, you know, that they've come to ask me to host a meeting for a very senior minister. So I said, what meeting? Well, it's just going to be a meeting, and they want me to get some people together, you know, to meet with him. So I said, well, what about? Oh, they can't say. I said, well, who's the minister? Oh, they can't say. So I said, when's the meeting going to be? They can't say. They just want to know, am I going to do it? So I remember saying to him, you want me to host a meeting? I don't know when it is. I don't know who it's with, but I've got to get a load of people there. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I says, no. And they both looked at me like, no. I went, no, unless I know who it is. I said, I'm not doing it. So, you know, I said, you know, you might as well go. I got on with my day. So I remember they came back again. It was the second time they came back. The same thing. I think they gave me their date now. They actually gave me a date because I said, how can I call people to a meeting? They're going to ask me when, you know. So I think the second time they gave me a date. And I said, okay, well, who's it with? Oh, we can't say. What's it about? We can't say. So I said, well, no, I'm not doing it. Not interested. And they're like, but it's a very senior minister. And I think maybe because I was not politically savvy, you know, so even when they're saying to me, it's a senior minister, I'm thinking, that didn't just mean, it just didn't mean anything to me. So eventually they've turned up at my house, you know, and they said, right, the senior minister is Tony Blair. And I was like, oh, the Prime Minister? And they were like, yes. And it's about gun crime, and it's on such and such a day. Will you do it? And I was like, yeah, okay, I think I could do that, you know. And I was like, oh, you know, goodness. And it was just then I thought, oh yeah, they did say senior minister, but they're all ministers, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, that's how Tony Blair came down. So and I remember, it was that funny, I remember then, that time, the chief constable that we had, I remember him saying to me, Erinma, how come you know that the Prime Minister's coming and I got told last and he's got to do all the logistics? I says, because I'm important and I insist on knowing who I'm going to meet with.
See, so that goes back to just do it, and your outspokenness obviously got you the end game. That must have been such a rewarding moment to know that you'd finally got that attention. And talking about getting attention, your introductory video talked about how you then got into a Peace Scholar. I know I'm fast forwarding for a few years here, but tell us about, how did that come about then? How did you find yourself as a Peace Scholar? And that lovely thing about, I didn't know why on earth I was there. That was super.
I remember, well, again, because of the OSBAs, the Outstanding Social Behaviour Awards, what we do every time, we always look for sponsors of the awards, you know, so that we can get the little crystal plaques, hire the hotel, because we run it properly. We run it like the Oscars, that, you know, our young people from the inner city urban areas get the opportunity to go to a really fancy do in a nice hotel. So I remember somebody said to me, because I think I'm very good at selling stuff. I'm a bit like my dad. My dad, I've always described him as a black version of the Arthur Daly, if anybody knows who Arthur Daly was. Anyway, and somebody said to me, oh, go to the Rotary, they've got money. I was like, oh, have they? Okay, I'll go and do my sales pitch. And I remember I went and I did my sales pitch, you know, about the peace work that we're doing, about Peace Week, and we end Peace Week. We start with the staged event, and then we end with the OSBAs. We end our Peace Week with the OSBAs, you know, which is like the Peace Awards. And they sponsored us, which was really great. And I have to give them a plug, Rotary Manchester Breakfast Club, you know. And they sponsored awards, I think probably 3 times. They sponsored the Young Persons Award. And I remember I think it was about the 3rd time, I went to them to talk and do my talk about, the peace work we do. That's when they asked me, they said, oh, we have a training program that we would like to send you on. And we were just wondering whether you'd be interested. So I said, oh, what is it? They said, oh, it's all about peace building. And I thought, oh, yes, because that was kind of like right up my street. And I enjoy learning. I enjoy learning new things. And I think, we're never too old to learn. Learning is forever, life, L-I-F-E. And I'm from a family of academics as well. So I thought, yeah, I'd go and do that. I said, oh, how long is it? They said, oh, it's 3 months. I said, yeah. I thought, yeah, doddle, no problem. I'll do that. And I remember at the table, they said, oh, yeah, she's agreed to go to, that she wants to do the program. It's in Chulalongkorn. And I remember thinking, where on earth is Chulalongkorn? I couldn't even say it at the time. I was like, and it's going round in your head, and everything else that everybody was saying was just like a blur, because I'm just trying to work out. I thought, I know I didn't do geography, but I'm supposed to know where which, and I was thinking, where's that in England? That dizzy blonde moment, And so I had to ask them, and I went, where's Chulalongkorn? And they were like, oh, it's in Bangkok. And I was like, Bangkok? As in Thailand? They were like, yeah. And I went, as in other side of the world? And they were like, yes, is that a problem? And I was like, oh, I'm really going to have to think about this one, And then even when I went to Bangkok, first of all, when I sat in the airport, I couldn't believe I was going. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to the other side of the world and never been there before. I'm going on my own, leaving my family. I thought, this is crazy. But I even remember when I got there and we started the program, met some fantastic people that I still keep in touch with till today. But everybody was talking about the conflicts that they were dealing with. And I don't know if that term, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome, where because that is what I felt. I felt like I shouldn't be here, because people were talking about, the disasters in Myanmar, or it was about the volcanic eruption and all these people have got no homes, or, the tsunami in here and the war. And I was thinking, oh God, I just come from Manchester, where they've just got some stupid idiots running around with guns. And I did actually, no word of a lie, I did approach the program leader and I said to her, I don't think I should be on this program. And, she did ask me why. I said, because I'm not dealing with a disaster like, everybody else is. And, I'm the only one from England, and everybody was from all these fancy countries, and I said, no, I shouldn't be here. And she said, no, that you are dealing with a conflict. She said, well, is it acceptable, the young people running around with guns and shooting each other? And I was like, well, no, it's not acceptable. It's not what we're used to. She said, neither is a tsunami, neither is a volcanic eruption. So, you're dealing with a conflict. It might be a micro conflict, but it's still conflict. And that's where I for a good couple of days or maybe a week or so, I had to sit and really get my head around that as to, what kind of a conflict we were dealing with, and then basically how I was going to tackle it when I came back.
Yeah, brilliant. So just moving forward a little bit more, Erinma, to receiving a statue of yourself in the Manchester Town Hall. So just tell us a little bit how it feels to be not only the first Black woman, but the first woman in general to have a statue of yourself in the Manchester Town Hall.
Yes, guess what? I have been immortalized in gun metal. Well, again, I said CARISMA, we've had lots of different projects that we've done. And one of our projects is called Guns to Goods, where basically I came up with the idea of smelting down gunmetal and changing that negative perception of that gunmetal into something positive that people can look at and say, oh, that's nice. And so we worked with young people, melting down metal, and we brought basically 2 groups of young people together. So it was high school young people who were doing their GCSE physics to work with university students who were studying physics at a degree level, and they worked together on changing metals into something positive. And the metal they were working with was gunmetal. So they'd go to the infirmary as well, to see how it's all melted down. They've made brooches, they've made clothing tags, they've made, because our building was the salt shaker, they made salt shakers, but the little metal bit on top, that was made out of gunmetal. And I've said brooches out of gunmetal. And then I decided, wow, let's do something big. let's do something really big out of gunmetal. And I got that idea because one time in our museum, they had this throne of weapons, and I think it had been doing the tour. But they actually used weapons to make this throne. And personally, I just thought it was a horrible piece of art, you know, you could still see all the guns. And that's when I thought, well, let's do something big, but let's melt down that gunmetal. At the same time, there was an artist who wanted to do my bust, because she does busts of women, only women, and women who wear unusual headgear. So that's why she asked, could she do me? So that's when I said yes. And she did the bust out of clay. And then when we were talking about doing something out of gunmetal, we were actually talking completely something else. And she's the one that said, why don't we change your bust into gunmetal? And I remember thinking, what, can you do that? You know, because I didn't know. And she said, yeah, she'd know how to do it. And she did. You know, we got the gunmetal. That's when I had to go to the chief constable and say, I need some more guns. That was a funny conversation. And a cast had to be done. And cut a long story short, she created the bust out of gunmetal. And I think she used 55 guns. So 55 recycled guns is what she used. And when we saw it, it's just a beautiful piece of artwork. At first, I thought it was a bit facetious having a statue of oneself, you know, and how do I talk about it? But I'm getting used to it now. And basically, it's her artwork. She's called Karen Lyons, and that is the artwork that she produces. And when it was produced as well, I remember she wanted to put it in. There was a competition that was happening in Manchester for, you know, an art piece of a female to be put somewhere in Manchester. And I remember saying to Karen, yeah, but you've already done it. She said, but she still wants to put it in the competition. And when I looked at all the names of all the, you know, people had to come up with different names, every single one of them was dead. And I said to Karen, I said, I don't want my name lined up with all these women that are dead. I said, I'm still alive, you know. So basically, being the activist, I did my own unveiling. I said, it's not going into any competition with dead women. I said, we're doing our own unveiling. And we did. We unveiled it in, I think it was 2016 we first unveiled it in Manchester Cathedral. We had all the media there and everything, and chief of police. It was absolutely fantastic. And then afterwards, now I think it was the year later, Manchester City Council asked if they could have it in the town hall. So they did another unveiling. And what I usually tell people about that statue, it is absolutely fantastic. It's a real legacy. You know, it's a real legacy. I am the first female in 150 years to have a statue of herself in Manchester Town Hall, and I have the statue on display. I am a woman. I am a Black woman. As you can see, I'm an African woman. And I think the biggest paradigm in history that it changes is the fact that I'm still alive. They haven't created this statue 100 years after I'm dead, you know, so I can actually take selfies with my own, which I have done, you know, with my own statue. And I think it does create a new paradigm in history because it's never been done before. And, you know, good on the Lord Mayor and them for saying, yeah, we're going to change history and we're going to have a female statue, not only a female statue, but, you know, a statue of an African woman in the town hall.
Super. So we're really short of time, Erinma, but we've got time for about one more question. So as short as possible answer if you can, but as much detail and excitement in there as possible. So just last one from me is, in the last year, obviously we've seen a huge rise in the understanding of racism and the impacts of and the effects of racism come to the forefront through organizations like Black Lives Matter and a lot of the things that we've been seeing over the last year. How did that kind of affect your organization, and what positive impacts can we take from that movement?
I think the one thing that whole movement has done, and you know, and I've done many a talk on this where people have always asked me that question. I think the one thing that it actually does for us in this country, in the UK, I think for once, it has given us the opportunity to talk openly and honestly about racism, you know, and especially as a person of color, being able to talk about racism openly and honestly, and try my best or our best to get across to, you know, people of non-color, you know, i.e. white people, exactly what we're feeling and exactly why we don't like certain terminologies or, you know, certain things, and you know, exactly how we understand how somebody is being racist towards us, because it's those who feel it know it. And many of us, we feel it and we know it, but we're unable to talk about it. We're unable to show it. But now, we can.
Well, I think that's a fantastic answer. I don't know how you answered that one so quickly. I referenced this earlier, Erinma. I think, it is about learning, and it is all of us owe ourselves the opportunity to learn how to have those difficult conversations. So thank you for that. And talking about calls to action, can we ask you now for your 3 key takeaways that you'd like to ask our audience to act on?
Yes, the first one is coming off that last question about race and diversity. Being able to have, or will you have, that difficult conversation with somebody about race and diversity? Ask them about who they are, where they're from, but generally and genuinely want to understand where they're from and how come they're here, or, why race and diversity is important to them. Because you remember earlier I spoke about identity, why someone's identity is important to them. For me, it's important for me to dress like this. I'm a Nigerian born in Britain. It's important to me. And I wouldn't mind if somebody asked me, why is that important to you? So I'm prepared to answer difficult questions, but are you prepared to ask the difficult question and be genuine? That's one. The second one, I love these quotes. George Orwell, when he said, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And this reminds me of women as peace builders and the gender bias that we have within our lives. So are we, can I ask people to be aware of their own gender biases that they have? And I suppose now, even gender bias, we're also talking about people from the LGBTQIA communities as well, and not only women, but really about the women, because women do a lot in peace building. So what are you going to do to make sure your gender balance within your group, within your organization, make sure that there is a gender balance? And finally, this one is by Edmund Burke. The perpetuation of evil happens when good people do nothing. So very simply, what are you going to do to build peace in your community?
What
Amazing.
powerful calls to action, Erinma. I think, one of the things I love, the first one is to be able to be prepared and take risks, because there is a risk that we're going to get it wrong, that, it is a sensitive subject, but ignoring it and standing aside and having fear around the topic is not going to help either in building that chance to have these tough conversations. So fantastic calls to action. You've been a joy to talk to. You're a bundle of energy and passion, and I can see why you love this concept of peace building. Just do it. Who knew that peace building, a lot of people would say that's way too big a thing to take on, but look what you've achieved in your lifetime. Thanks for being such a fantastic example to us all. Very hard to say goodbye to you, but thank you so much.
Thank
Really,
you
so much.
Really enjoyed the conversation.
Bye.
Well, Erinma is such a powerful advocate for young people and vulnerable communities, and is a true local hero in Manchester. I actually told a friend of mine recently, who is a community activist and teacher in Manchester, that I'd be speaking to her, and he was so excited for us and said she is a true celebrity in the activist circles. So we were very, very lucky to have her with us this evening.
What a privilege indeed. I can certainly see why your friend said that, Luke. What a joy it's been.
Thank you, Nikki. Now let's end by thanking you, our audience, for being with us tonight and asking such great questions. We would like to remind you that tonight's broadcast, along with all of series 1 to 4, is now available on demand on the Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland YouTube page, where we'd like to invite you to like, subscribe and share.
So until then, it's good night from me.
And a very good night from me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.